Hello friends, this is Coach Bala here. One more weekend bites the dust. Congratulations everyone. You guys have completed 2 weeks of warm-up, a full meso cycle, meso 1, that's 3 more weeks. And now you completed the first week of the second meso cycle. So you've done 6 weeks of this journey already done and tested. You guys should feel really good about yourself. What has happened in this last 6 weeks is one, you've sort of, dusted it, removed all the rust that was in your body, maybe for the first timers or even for the return runners. And then the first meso was about getting into the habit. 3 weeks of habit forming happened. And now this week you are beginning to get the training effect that we are shooting for. Now, one way of looking at this is whatever distance you are running right now, especially on the weekdays, probably that is 2 times the distance that you ran in your warm-up week, or even I would say the first week of first meso cycle. So you're actually double the distance. But what is interesting is the exertion, the impact that you have, the effect, and the amount of input that you need to put in seems not double. Maybe it's the same, maybe it's a little bit more, but definitely not double. Or another way of looking at it is, let us say in this alternative world, I'd asked you to go and do the same training that you did in your warm-up week or in your first week of the first meso cycle. You would do it very easily. You will not even think about it. It's like, oh, wow, what's the big deal? So that is training effect. That is what you all are getting trained for right now. And we need to ask ourselves, what is happening? Why is this happening like this? So for that is what I want to talk about today. What is happening in your body that is able to drive these kind of changes? The first one is I want to talk a little bit about, I'm not a doctor, but I'm a coach. So I can talk to you in terms of coach's point of view. How is it that your muscles are developing? Let's understand that. Because the more you understand it, there are some small tweaks that you would do by yourself. First thing is, let us assume that, making it very simple, the only set of muscles that you use for your running, which is obviously not the case, there are tons of muscles that are used, but let's just assume that the only muscles that you use is the muscle in your calf muscle, which is a very nice, you can see the calf. Let's assume that it has got 100 fibers, individual fibers, like the broomstick, the Indian broomstick. Each stick is tied together with a rope and it forms a broom. Likewise, imagine each strand of muscle, everything parallel to each other. It is all tied together in a fascia. Fascia is the sort of the covering, and it makes it like a sort of ball of muscle. And that is what is kind of powering your run. Let's assume that. So you have 100 fibers, each of them 100. Now, when you start running, let's assume when there is a controlled overload that happens. Really, what is really happening is that these fibers, because it's an overload, definitely it is getting overstretched or it is getting over fatigued. Now, as a result, by the time you finish your first run, it is entirely possible that 10 out of the 100 fibers have actually broken, or it has expanded into a plastic zone. It is not coming back, or it has sort of knotted with each other and has formed a knot instead of parallel to each other. Thereby, it is the tensile strength and the compression strength is highest. When it is knotted, then you have all kinds of fractures that can happen. So that is what has happened. These knots is what causes you some localized pain. Breakage of muscle fiber also causes you soreness, exhaustion. You're not able to power the run sometimes, let's say towards the end of the run. This is what is happening in your muscles. So you do that, you finish it, you come home and you rest. When you're resting, the body is thinking, hey, what just happened? This is not a shock. This was not a flight or a fight kind of a scenario where I had to run away from danger. This was a controlled load that happened in my body. That means I was not in a state of shock. Oxygen was sufficient, but still my muscle fibers had a little bit of breakage. So I need to do something to protect myself tomorrow if there is a controlled overload again happens. So what it does, first it goes and mends all these fractures, these micro failures that has taken place. It just goes and fixes it. But then it doesn't stop there. It says that, hey, when I had 100 fibers, 10 fibers broke. Maybe I need to add 10 more fibers. So I want to have 110 fibers in that same area. This increase in the number of fibers that the body realizes that it has to do is the training effect. So if you think about it, that is really what we want. We want the body to start building muscle fibers in a natural way so that we have more fibers, and as a result our power is stronger, we get stronger. This is the bottom line when it comes to training, and this is what we all are trying to do. So now this is theory. Now let me just see what does it mean practically so that you can execute on this theory. The first one is, and the most important operative word that I said, is that this was a planned overload. This was not a shock to the system. What do I mean by that? If it is a shock, that means you're running in anaerobic state where you're panting, you're not running in a CP run, then the body thinks that, oh my God, this is in a shock system. Now the job of the body is not to build for future. The job of the body is to protect the body from getting into the shock. Thereby it does everything except training effect to solve for this, which is maybe it will increase the metabolism, it will give you some extra adrenaline to get away from it. All of this is nothing to do with training. It has everything to do with reducing the shock that has been applied to the system if the body thinks like that. But if the body is in aerobic state, which is the CP state that we talk about, then body thinks I need to add muscle. So the first thing you need to do is make sure when you're in CP, you train in CP. Then only the training effect happens. The second thing is when you finish the run, the body is all getting ready to mend the muscles and build more fibers. For a body to make fibers, what does it need? It needs protein. So your job is to give a nice supplement of protein immediately after the run, or max 35 to 45 minutes after the run, especially of the weekend run. You do that, you suddenly supercharge the production of muscles and your training effect increases. So that's what I wanted to say. The second thing is have a protein shake right after your long run, especially the weekend run. For every run you can do, but definitely after the weekend run. That's item number 2. Item number 3 is the soreness that you have after a run is a sign of, what do I call it? The sign of training effect that is about to happen. Soreness is the first trigger for the training impact or the training effect to happen in your body. Or in other words, there is an English adage in running or in general, no pain, no gain. So having soreness is not something we all should be worried about. Soreness is part and parcel of the training game. If you finish the run, when you have soreness, you're good. Now, the only question is how much of pain is a good pain. That we will talk about it in a future episode. But for now, when you run, if you feel a little sore in some of the muscles, you know that training effect is happening in those muscles. That's all you need to be thinking about. And when you do this powerful combination of systematic overload, the systematic overload is very important. Because if you overload it too much, then it gets into the shock. At the same time, if you do underload, then you will not get the training effect. So you need to have a little 10%, 15% increase in load in a systematic way, which is what is our training plan. Which is what our coaches come together, the RRCA certified coaches, create the training plan to provide you controlled overload. This controlled overload is what we're shooting after. As part of that, consistent controlled overload is even more important. And that's why we have the 3 days, a little bit of a rest and the long run. There is a structure, there is a method to this madness. And as long as you don't have to think too much about it, as long as you simply follow these schedules, all of this will come into play. And one thing will get added to the next. And you start going towards this training train towards the other end of the state, as I explained to you in my previous message. So that's what I want to tell you in summary. Controlled training load in a non-shock environment lends itself to optimized training effect. Putting it simply in running terms, ensuring that you are consistent, running in CP, having that protein shake right after the long run, preferably definitely after long run, if you want after every run, 30 to 45 minutes. And knowing that soreness is the starting of the training journey or the training effect journey summarizes the theory and the practical coming together. So that's what I want to tell you folks about this thing. On part of the same thing, I also wanted to tell you about one more strategic framework that we use to execute on the training program that you will begin to start seeing. It is called the FIT framework: frequency, intensity, and time between workouts, FIT. You want to make sure that you're running at a regular frequency. You want to make sure that there are enough intensity in the work, then only you have the controlled overload. And then you want to make sure that you give sufficient time between runs, between overloads, so that the body can do what I just told you, the muscle building training impact phase. Frequency, intensity, and time between runs. So when you think about it from a running journey training perspective, it is not enough. Like you say that, hey, I missed my Tuesday run, 2-mile run, Wednesday is a 2-mile run. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to think of it as a savings bank. And instead of doing 1 2-mile run, let me do the Wednesday 4 miles. In that way, I feel, okay, the weekly mileage is done. Oh, I'm sorry. That doesn't work like that. Why? It fails on the frequency stool. It fails on intensity. It becomes over intense. 4 weeks becomes 4 miles on the second day becomes over intense on the point of wherever you are in your training journey. When it becomes over intense, it is not a controlled overload, and as a result, you do not have any training effect, or in other words, it's a pointless, wasted effort that day. Similarly, time between runs, that's what gets you the time for muscles to build up, otherwise you will get injured. So imagine you have a Saturday run, you have a Sunday off, Monday is a strength training, and Tuesday is a run. That's our current setup. For whatever reason, you missed Saturday, you did Sunday, and then whatever reason, you went Tuesday run, you did it on Monday. Okay, once in a while, it's okay to make that change. But if you do this on a consistent basis, all it is happening is you have not given enough time after the long run for your muscles to come back, so you will get injured in the process. It's as simple as you do A, you do B, you will get to C. It's as simple as that. Simple common sense. But you know what? Running and runners are not known for their common sense when it comes to pushing their body and pushing their mental strength. So that's all I want to tell you about this in this today's message. Focus on fit, frequency, intensity, and time between the runs while thinking about controlled overload in a protein-rich post-run diet, and with a consistent approach to training gets you up the training plane towards wherever you need to be. Okay, thank you so much, guys. Congratulations again for completing one more week. All the very best for the next week. Let's keep it going. Take it easy.